So the idea is that we are going to reinforce behaviors effectively through a number of different strategies, and that is being clear and concrete in our expectations, finding the right reinforcer that's going to appropriate reinforcer, make the consequence contingencies explicit. We're going to reinforce consistently, and we're going to monitor progress. Now, that's how we use reinforcement in our classroom. Now, are we going to use punishment in our classroom? Yeah. Do we want to use punishment a lot? No. Why? It kind of stinks to use punishment. Students don't like how they feel. Students don't like to be embarrassed. Remember, where students are trying to fit in a lot of times, and if you're calling them out, the old flight or fight response, if you've ever watched The Breakfast Club, you can see how it happens. Bender is sitting there, hey, any last questions the vice principal asks? And Bender says, yeah. Does Barry Manilow know you rate his wardrobe? To which the vice principal responds, I'll give that answer next Saturday. Are you done? He looks around. He sees they're all looking at him. He says, no. He says, okay, you can have another Saturday. It's like, okay, fine. It's like, you want to do another one? Sure. And suddenly it's like, oh my God, these two are fighting. It's ridiculous, right? We don't want to get there, but we will use punishment. We just don't want to use that as our principal means of changing behavior. So what we'll do is we'll use some common mild forms of punishment. One of the ones that we use is verbal reprimands. We verbally reprimand our students. How do we do that? Well, ideally, we want to do that in two ways. One is in private, if possible, but two, in a calm and straightforward manner where we're not trying to elevate the students, elevate them to the point where they feel like they need to fight against us. Okay? Private. Remember, it's not the student, it's the behavior. So we have to be very clear about what we're reprimanding. It's the behavior, not the student. But the idea is, again, if I call them out in front of a group of kids, don't be surprised if they want to fight with you right there in front of everybody else. So in private, calm manner, discuss the behavior, expectations, etc. Second, response cost. That means their response is going to cost them something. It might cost them an activity, might cost them participation in something, or whatever it might be. Their response is going to cost them something. Third, timeouts. We know what timeouts are, right? You're just taking them from the environment that they find so engaging. But remember, timeouts are not meant to be put a kid out in the hall, because you put the kid out in the hall, disaster. Put the kid in the back of the room, disaster, right? Timeouts are you're just trying to pull the kids away from the environment they find so engaging. I like kids, if they're going to have timeouts, come on up right next to me, sitting, facing me right there. I pull them out of the environment they find so engaging so that I can have their full attention and they can be on task. All right? Fourth, logical consequences. My favorite one, logical consequences. You make a mess, you pick it up. You waste my time, I'll waste your time, right? They need to learn that their actions have consequences and that our response to their consequences or to their bad behaviors or whatever is going to be appropriate, not inappropriate, logical. Lastly is in-school suspensions. In-school suspensions are as far as you want to take them, but in-school suspensions are meant to make the students responsible for one, the time that they're out of class, and two, that they have work to do while they're there. So in-school suspension is like a big timeout, right? But they need to be engaged with material. They need to be in the school, etc. Those are things that we will do periodically in order to shape behavior, typically decrease behavior, right? Now, in addition to mild forms of punishment are some ineffective methods of punishment. You'll see that in the slide. What does that mean? Okay, you'll look at them and you can see why they'd be ineffective. Physical punishment, one, legal issues. Two, if there aren't legal issues, then you have to wonder what kind of rapport you're developing with your student. If you're putting your hands on them or you're pushing them or you're doing any of that stuff, leave that stuff to somebody else. That's not our thing, okay? We're much more likely to take things away that they find enjoyable in order to decrease behavior, right? We're not going to do the physical stuff. Second, psychological. Oh my goodness. You don't know how often teachers employ psychological forms of punishment. First and foremost, remember that you're a human. We're all human. And sometimes students just push our buttons. I would love to say that they don't. And I would love to say that I can get over anything and they're not going to push me to a point. But I'll tell you, it happens to everyone. At some point in time, they peck and they peck and they peck and they peck, and you just lash out and you say something really kind of nasty. Or you may say something sarcastic, or you make them feel small. Why? Because, oh, it feels so good. No, you say it because it was just, they were pushing your buttons. Okay. I always remember my sister Annabelle. We had a story. One time we were talking about this student in her classroom, and this little girl comes up crying, and she says that she was teaching third grade, fourth grade at the time. This other little boy had been placing his boogers on the girl's notebook. So Annabelle's telling me this story, and then she's yells at the kid, "If I didn't love you so much, I would strangle you." Right? Now I know your eyes light up. You say strangle? I look at it and say, hey, she said she loved him first, right? But the point is like, oh my God, there are days when people just push your buttons and you just want to say something just to make yourself feel better. And I say, it'll happen. And what you need to do in those instances is reestablish rapport with the student. I've done it in a college classroom. I had a student who kept picking, and one time I just had to use my sharp tongue and just put him in his place. And then after the class was over, I thought, oh, Eric, that's really good. Real grown up, real smart, right? I didn't feel good at what I did. I felt good for 8 seconds, but I didn't feel good later because it was not appropriate. So what do? Next class period, in front of the whole class, I say, hey, the other day I didn't like such and such, and the student acted like he didn't even know what I was talking about. It didn't matter whether he did or he didn't. I needed to say, I didn't like the way I responded, and I'm sorry. You will find that the sooner you're able to say you're sorry or to develop or reestablish rapport with the student, it is such a good feeling that you'll be able to do it much more easily in the future. Extra classwork. What does that tell? What signal does that send students? Really? Classwork is a punishment? So anytime that they're doing homework going forward, they see it as a form of punishment. No. You're sending the wrong message. Extra classwork is not the appropriate means for punishment. You communicate the wrong message. And lastly, out of school suspension. You're probably giving them what they want anyway. They don't want to be there. Now they're not there. So out of school suspensions, not the way you want to go, right? Can't guarantee that they will even be doing the work that you expect them to do going forward. So a couple other things to finish up with this video, the last video here, is when you look at reinforcement as a whole, we use reinforcement and operant conditioning as a means of changing behavior, but it doesn't always work. And I suggest 4 reasons as to why reinforcement doesn't work. Okay, one is the reinforcement that you selected is not reinforcing. The kids don't like it. It's not going to change because they don't care. They don't want a pizza party. They're lactose intolerant, so ice cream means nothing to them. So it doesn't work. Garfield pencils, not enough. Second, reinforcement is not consistent. If you're not consistent with your reinforcement, they don't connect the association. They don't make the association. They don't make the connection between the behavior and the reinforcement. Third, my favorite, they lose too much or gain too little to quit. If you're a class clown and you love telling jokes in the middle of class, and a teacher says that's not appropriate, and they're going to give you a big king-size Milky Way at the end of the week, if they don't crack jokes anymore, that might interest them for a little bit. But after an evaluation, after an assessment, the students start weighing them out. Candy bar, popularity. Candy bar, having fun in class. Candy bar, breaking up the monotony in class. After a while, they're like, oh my God, no, being a class clown is a heck of a lot more fun than a candy bar, right? And lastly, too much is expected too soon. When you are asking a student to sit from 5 minutes to 30 minutes overnight by offering them 10 minutes on the computer, ain't going to work, okay? You gradually shape them through that process. Last thing. How many of you have been to a casino? Casino ball, casino? If you've ever sat and looked at those slot machines that get so many people pulling the handle, how does that work? They're called schedules of reinforcement, right? The book talks about it as well. But Think about it for a second. Say you go into a casino and you've got $20 in your pocket. You're going to go and you're going to try to make some money at the slot machines. Now imagine for a minute that you put in $1 and you pulled the handle and cha-ching, you made money. Put $1 in, pull the handle, cha-ching, put $1 in, pull the handle, cha-ching, put $1 in, pull the handle, cha-ching. You'd keep doing that forever and ever and ever, man, because it's paying out all the time. Your behavior is getting paid off every time, okay? What do they call that? They call that scheduled reinforcement, okay? They call that a continuous reinforcement, okay? A schedule of continuous reinforcement. Man, you pay off every time. They'll keep pulling that handle. That's not how it works, though, okay? How does it work? A slot machine, you put $1 in, pull the handle, cha-ching. Put $1 in, pull the handle, nothing. Put $1 in, pull the handle, nothing. Put $1 in, pull the handle, cha-ching. Nothing, nothing, cha-ching, nothing, cha-ching, nothing, 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 cha-ching, nothing, cha-ching. And you don't know when you're going to get paid off. And you keep pulling the handle because just the next time, on top of that payoff, they have things going across. Strawberry, strawberry, lemon. So it's like strawberry, strawberry, oh, 7, 7, oh. And they're getting, that's what they're doing there is you're expecting that you don't know when you're going to get paid off. They call that an intermittent scheduled reinforcement. That's how slot machines work, on an intermittent scheduled reinforcement. The payoff is going to come, you just don't know when. So you keep pulling the handle because maybe it's the next time, maybe the next time, right? So how does that work in real life? How does that work for us as teachers, man? What we know is people learn behaviors really quickly when you give them reinforcement. Every time they keep pulling that handle, that slot machine, if you're paying off every time, they learn that behavior. The chart looks like this. Zoom! They learn that behavior quickly. And as soon as you stop paying off, that behavior plateaus and drops off, right? But on an intermittent schedule, what happens? The learning curve, pull the handle, cha-ching, pull the handle, nothing, 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 cha-ching. The behavior, the learning curve is a little less steep. It's not as steep. You gradually learn to do that behavior. You gradually learn, okay? In the classroom, if we're trying to teach a student a new behavior, a new response, a new whatever it is, what do? Reinforce them a lot. Reinforce them a lot. Why? Because we want them to make that association quickly. We want them to learn it quickly, and we do that. But eventually, we can't sit there and reinforce every student for every behavior every time. What do? We go to an intermittent schedule. We gradually reinforce that behavior every so often. So just because the kid raises their hand doesn't mean I call on them every time, right? I call on them sporadically. And by sporadically calling on them, they keep that connection with raise your hand, I might get called on. They learn that behavior. And the idea is maybe I didn't get called this time, but maybe next time. Maybe I didn't this time, but maybe next time. Okay, so how do we do that? In classrooms, when we want students to learn new behaviors, we reinforce a lot early on. It's just like the coach that's standing above the student and they're getting up to swing and soft. We reinforce that behavior again and again and again. We want them to make connections, make that connection, make that connection, make that connection. Then, after they've got it, we pull back the reinforcement and we do it a little bit more sporadically, a little bit more sparingly. But we got to do it. We still need to reinforce them periodically so that they can make the connection and they can maintain or upkeep that behavior, right? So reinforcement feels good when the students get it. It communicates expectations, all right? And that's how we change or shape behaviors in operant conditioning. And that's kind of the basis for our unit on behavioral approaches to learning. Our next unit we'll go over to next week. We'll start talking about social cognitive theory. And social cognitive theory has elements, behavioral elements, but you'll notice it also has some of the information processing or the internal components, right? The cognitive approach to learning. And so we'll focus on a combination between some of the behavioral aspects as well as some of the more internalized cognitive or information processing approach. Okay. If you have any questions or comments related to these videos, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and look for my emails. I'll communicate frequently here with some different things about what we're doing. Okay. Have a good week, guys.